The history of Chargers trauma, playoff debacles, January collapses, all of that was supposed to be a thing of the past because Jim Harbaugh showed up. And then we found out wildcard weekend, it's not a thing of the past. It's still here with a vengeance. Let's talk about a disgraceful Chargers playoff loss yet again right now. But before we get there, remember to subscribe to the channel. We got DA deep dives like this after every game of the NFL playoffs. Keep it locked right here throughout the NFL postseason and Sunday nights when we go live. Make sure you are subscribed so that you get notifications on both fronts. I have been such a big Harbaugh honk this year. First of all, the idea that the usually finesse, always talented, but foundationally flawed Chargers would have a guy walk in and do smash mouth, man, that just warmed the cockles of my football DNA. I love the idea of Harbaugh taking over the Bolts, the Powder Blues, and making them a little smash mouth and making them more credible, because let's face it, the last two coaches have been complete imbeciles. Anthony Lynn, Brandon Staley, over their skis. And this team has a cornerstone quarterback in Justin Herbert, who you don't want to see the prime of his career ruined by bad coaching and incompetent front office moves. And so Harbaugh coming in, I thought, was the perfect salve to all of the wounds of what Chargers football has looked like for so long. And yet there it was on display in the early window on Saturday, the first wild card playoff game we had, the first taste of postseason football, and it was S-O-B. Same old Bolts. The Chargers were supposed to have two significant advantages with Harbaugh taking over the reins. One, football IQ, situational football. You know a Harbaugh team's going to get that right, and physicality. Well, guess what? The kick in the teeth today was that the Chargers lost both of those parts of the game. Let's start with situational football, and the biggest one. After an 86-yard touchdown sprint from Herbert to Ladd McConkey, which will pull the Chargers to within 10 points, the Chargers line up for the extra point, and, of course, it's blocked. So that's just trashy special teams right there. But then Dicker, the kicker, sees a block kick up above him, and he decides to volleyball spike it down into the ground, which is nice if it was a deflected pass. Then it would be incomplete. Instead, it's just a blocked kick. And you don't have possession of it, and that means it's still a live ball, which the Texans took advantage of and brought it back to the house for another 2 points the other way. I mean, look, for a kicker, you don't pass, you don't run, you don't catch, and you don't tackle. You don't do anything except trot your butt out there once in a while to make a kick. And on those few plays per game, would it kill you to know the rules? I would think a kicker should be intimately familiar with the rules of a blocked extra point or a blocked field goal, because that's the only thing you're on the field for. Mind-numbingly bad. But there's also a point in the first half, towards the end of the second quarter, where the game really flips. The Chargers had a chance to ice this game in the first two drives. They only came away with 6 points. But the Texans couldn't do anything offensively, and they stared at a 3rd and 16 deep in their own end. With just over 2 minutes to play in the first half, C.J. Stroud fumbles the football. At this point in time, the Chargers more than likely are no worse than up 6-0 at the half, and maybe more because they should get the ball in pretty decent field position. And instead, C.J. Stroud picks up the ball. Stroud scrambles to the far sideline and uncorks a pass downfield to a wide open receiver. Hutchinson is open. He hauls in the pass, and what should be a calamity for the Texans going into the break instead is a 34-yard gain. Now, give Stroud a ton of credit for making this play and keeping his head about him. And yeah, freak, weird, broken plays always are a tough thing to defend. But still, that right there is a turning point because the Texans turned that into 7 points on that drive. Now it's a 7-6 Texans lead. Chargers get it back and 3 and out on 3 incomplete passes. No time comes off the clock. Now, for the Texans, they've got a chance to add more points at the end of the half. Bing, 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 into field goal position, and you trail 10-6 going to halftime. That right there is the turning point. And those are situational football plays the Chargers failed at. On those first 2 drives, the Chargers should have had so much more than 6 points. They drive down the field on a beautifully balanced drive to open up the game, mixing run and pass. They get to a 3rd and 1. They're moving the football, and then wham! Stopped by the Texans defense on 3rd and short. They got to settle for a field goal. That's where the Texans won the physicality battle early. And then you have a 2nd and 19 where Disley just drops the football. What are you doing, man? Again, lack of execution, sloppy football in the biggest moment, forces them to settle for another 3, and it's only 6-0. All of that should have been a different trajectory of this game in the Chargers' favor. Instead, they could not execute when it mattered most. But then down the stretch, when they're only down by a score or 2 every time that the Texans needed to move the ball, extend the drive, and drain clock, they did. They grinded it down the throats of the Chargers. And that right there is what the Chargers are supposed to be under Harbaugh, the more physical team. Secondly, Justin Herbert was a disaster today. You got to give the Texans defense credit. They rose to the occasion. They never broke early in the game when they could have given up 7s. They didn't. They forced the Chargers to settle for 3s. But let's also say that Justin Herbert was incredibly ineffective today, not just because of the Texans defense. He was just off. And for a guy that has a howitzer of an arm, that is built like the prototypical old school pocket passer, but can also scramble and has athleticism and mobility, has stitched to his coat 2 of the most painful playoff losses in recent memory, blowing the huge lead in Jacksonville a couple of years ago, and now a 4-interception effort in a year where you had only 3 in the regular season. That's a dunce hat for Justin Herbert. And I want to see more. We all want to see more because there's more to be had from Herbert. But the fact is, the last 6 quarters of playoff football for Justin Herbert has been flat out ugly. So props to the Texans. They deserve this one. But man, Chargers fans were sold a bill of goods. And so was I. This was supposed to be a different type of Chargers playoff team. And in the end, they were exactly the same. Hey, remember to subscribe to the channel before we get out of here. Click on this button right next to me. That way you'll be notified when we go live on Sunday nights for a full recap of playoff football throughout January and into February. And when we have DA deep dives like this, you will be notified. Thanks for watching, everybody. I'm DA. We'll see you next time.